Welcome to Art Watch, and I am your host, Thomas Higgins, and today we are by phone with Arthur M. Jolly, author of A Gulag Mouse, being presented by Tosspot Productions at Out North Contemporary Art House, March 22nd through April 7th. Welcome, Arthur.
Thank you so much for having me. My pleasure.
So where are you calling in from today?
I'm calling from sunny Los Angeles, where it is 75 degrees right now.
Yes, people are looking forward to summer here as well. So is L.A. your home base?
Yeah, I've lived all over this country. I was actually born in England, in case you couldn't tell from the accent. But I grew up in New York. I've lived in San Francisco Bay Area, Alabama, Las Vegas, Los Angeles, up to Oregon, and now back to Los Angeles just about a month ago.
With Gulag Mouse being presented by Tosspot Productions here, I know it's their first full performance production. Is this also your first Alaskan-produced play?
It is the first play I've had produced in Alaska. I had one read at the Last Frontier Theatre Conference in Valdez last year, which was actually where I met the actors who then formed the Tosspot production. But no, this will be my first full production anywhere in Alaska. I'm looking forward to it.
Do you have any reservations about having this new production company producing one of your plays?
Not at all. The actors I met at the Last Frontier Theatre Conference, and they are experienced, very well trained, very good actors. I'm really looking forward to seeing what they do with the material.
And those actors that you speak of are Morgan Mitchell, Danielle Ravidovich, Tamar Shai, Jill Sourwine, Anya Wyndham, and the lone male of the cast, Aaron Wiseman. Can you tell us a bit about A Gulag Mouse?
A Gulag Mouse is a thriller with a lot of drama, but also a lot of very black humor in it. Most of the play takes place inside a bunkhouse in a Siberian concentration camp with these 5 women in this intense pressure cooker where they may be fighting over a scrap of food or who gets the bunk closest to the stove, but those are life and death stakes. But the arrival of a new inmate upsets the hierarchies and alliances in her bunkhouse.
What prompted you to write a play of this nature?
The play was written for a theater company in Chicago called the Babes with Blades, and they're an all-women's stage combat-oriented theater company. They have a competition every 2 years to find plays that have strong roles for women that include fight scenes. So I wrote this specifically for that competition, The Joining Sword and Pen, which it won. It's also won a couple other competitions and awards, and it was a finalist for the Joanne Woodward Paul Newman Drama Award. It's done very well.
Were having strong women characters in a play something new for you?
A lot of my plays have strong female characters. I grew up with 2 older sisters, and I have a mother who is, well, the world's foremost authority on the lemurs of Madagascar. She's been going to Madagascar for 50 years, every single year, and tracking lemurs through the forest. So I grew up thinking that everyone's mother is a PhD who teaches at Princeton some of the year and goes to Madagascar and tramps around the forest after lemurs the rest of the year. So I tend to write strong female roles, I think, from that childhood.
You mentioned earlier that this play was written for women roles with combat, but the Chicago Theater called it a thriller with a brain. Do you know of that statement? And was it related to the first production by Babes with Blades?
Yes, the quote, "a thriller with a brain," comes from one of the reviews of the first production. In fact, the complete quote says it's densely packed with dark suspense, non-stop tension, well-timed action scenes, and black humor precisely placed and played for all its grim power. It's a dark, noirish thriller, but a thriller with a brain, showing historical and cultural sophistication. Yeah, no, that's the kind of review that you send to your mother, and I did. It was very well received in its Chicago production, and it isn't just about women fighting. This isn't a 70s women in prison movie. It isn't just about the physical, and it isn't even really about Siberian gulag. It's much more a metaphor for something that every woman goes through. It's actually something that has a wider resonance, I think, with people wherever you are, because it's much more about feeling trapped and being imprisoned by circumstance more than just specificity of the post-war gulags in Siberia.
You are listening to Art Watch on KONR 106.1 LPFM, and we are here with Arthur M. Jolly, the author of A Gulag Mouse, being presented by Tosspot Productions at Out North Contemporary Art House. A Gulag Mouse is directed by Arlisha Jones, opens March 22nd, and runs through April 7th. Fridays and Saturdays at 8 p.m., Sunday 3 p.m. matinees. Get ticket information at www.outnorth.org, calling 279-8099, or by visiting A Gulag Mouse Facebook event page. Arthur, how long did you work on A Gulag Mouse?
I actually wrote this play in 4 days flat. There was a deadline for the competition of February 28th, and I had set aside the month of February. It was between other projects, and I thought that is the month that I can write a play for this particular competition. And in the beginning of that month, my wife had a miscarriage, and it wasn't our first. It was very difficult for us to deal with. And then halfway through that month, I got a call from my mother from England saying that she had breast cancer and was going in for a mastectomy that weekend. So I flew to England to see my mother. I came back at the end of that month. I had 4 days before the deadline, and I hadn't written anything, and I had so much going on inside trying to deal with my wife and my mother and not being able to talk to either one about the other because they were both dealing with their own things, and it wasn't fair to burden them with that. So I ended up writing this entire play in 4 days as a way of trying to understand the question of how much of yourself as a woman you can lose and still be a woman. And whether that's a pregnancy or a breast, those are both something very deep and integral to being a woman, and something that cuts down to the core of who you are, and that both of these women dealt with and came through finding that inner strength that you have to in those situations. And it was so intense for me that this play just poured out on paper. As I say, life hands you things that you have to deal with and overcome. And this play is a representation of really an internal struggle. It took me 4 days to write it. There were later drafts where things got tweaked and some of the words changed, but the basis of the play, the core of the play, never changed from that initial draft. And that's what won the competition and got all the awards and is now being presented here in Alaska.
Do you anticipate possibly doing another play for the Babes with Blades contest?
Actually, the next play that I wrote for the Babes with Blades also won the competition, so I'm the only person to have won 2 years in a row. And that play was about two sisters in a garbage dump fighting over a letter from their dying mother that one of them had thrown out unopened. So they spend the entire play in a municipal garbage dump, digging through the garbage, trying to find the letter, while also digging through their relationship with each other and with this spectre of a mother that haunts them even after her death. Fairly intense, dramatic stuff, but once again with a lot of humor in it. When you hear about a play set in a gulag, you think it's going to be a depressing concentration camp style. It's got a lot of humor in it. It's fairly dark humor. But at the end of it, I think you come out hopeful. It's a tense thriller, but by the end, I think it's ultimately about the triumph of the human spirit and how some women, particularly strong women, if they're put in that situation, will rise above it. There is a lot of humor in both of those plays because that's, I think, how people deal with difficulty in their lives, is by finding the funny moments and appreciating them, and by finding that inner strength to push through and to survive.
And that other play that you speak of that was read at the Valdez conference was Trash. Was it workshopped there at the conference before or after it went to the Babes with Blades?
Trash was workshopped at the Last Frontier Theatre Conference after it had been performed by the Babes with Blades. I'd seen the production of it, and seeing it staged, I knew that there was more in there that could be found. So brought it to the Last Frontier Theatre Conference, worked with it there. Worked with it after that, because of course you get this wonderful feedback from all of these actors and playwrights at the conference. So then I rewrote it after that, had another reading of it in Houston, and it's going to open again in Chicago this summer in this newly revised version.
What other works have you wrote, and are they published and produced?
I've written about 44 plays. All of them have been produced, except my most recent, which I haven't sent out yet. And about 30 of them have been published. If anyone anyone's interested, you can go to my website, arthurjolly.com, and there are links to published plays, and there are some free monologues that you can download and read if you're an actor or if you just like reading theatrical monologues. They're there for people to enjoy.
Is the dark humor drama sort of your forte, or do you have other work in other genres?
The vast majority of what I write falls into that dramedy, comedic drama, dramatic comedy, whatever you want to call it, that space between the two. When I set out to write something funny, I always find that comes from real people in difficult situations. When I set out to write heavy drama, the characters always start making jokes of the situations they're in, even while recognizing how tense and fraught they are. So yes, naturally I tend towards the dramatic comedy, if you will. But I've also written a couple that are just flat out nothing but funny pieces. My most recent play is, I think, almost like The Odd Couple, and it is just made to make people laugh. And I will be bringing that one to the Last Frontier Theatre Conference this year. So if anyone wants to head up to Valdez and hear that one read out, you certainly can, which is called A Very Modern Marriage, and it is a bit of a departure from the dramas that I've been writing. It is a flat-out comedy about a married couple whose relationship is on the rocks, and their gay best friend who turns up and moves in with them.
So you're coming up to Valdez this May for the Valdez Theatre Conference. Will you be up to see the play here as well by Tospat, A Gulag Mouse?
Absolutely. I will be coming up to Anchorage for the opening night on Friday and staying over for the Saturday performance as well.
And the performances that our guest today, Arthur M. Jolly, speaks of is A Gulag Mouse, being presented by Tosspot Productions at Out North Contemporary Art House. A Gulag Mouse is directed by Arlisha Jones and opens March 22nd and runs through April 7th. Fridays and Saturdays at 8 p.m. and Sunday 3 p.m. matinees. Ticket information can be found at www.outnorth.org, by calling 279-8099, or by visiting A Gulag Mouse Facebook event page. You have said that you have met Tosspot, or rather the actors of the company, over at Valdez. Since your play wasn't read over there, was it something that you presented to them, or did they study you and find out about this piece?
We went out to dinner after the reading of my earlier piece, and Arlisha Jones said how much she liked the characters, but did I have anything with more roles for women in it? Because the play they'd heard read had only 2 roles of women in the entire play. So I said, well, yes, I wrote this play that's for 5 women, and pulled out a copy of A Gulag Mouse and gave it to her. And a couple months later, she called up and was like, yes, this works for us, and we want to do it.
Do you ever get involved in any of the late-night antics at the theater conference, such as the Fringe Festival?
Absolutely. My goal was to try and have something for the Fringe Festival every single evening I was there. I almost did it, but I did get a couple of short plays out of Fringe Festival that have gone on to other productions. You
took them and ran with them, made them longer?
They were short plays, and I kept them short, but I did refine them and work on them and send them off to the other theaters after that. There is nothing like being surrounded by other theatre professionals to really push you to produce and to create. And I love it. I will be at this year's Last Frontier Theatre Conference again. I think I will become a regular unless someone tries to stop me.
You mentioned earlier that there was monologues available, and that was at your website. Is all your work available there?
Yeah, there are several free monologues that you can download at the website, and lists of all my upcoming productions, links to publishers, and there's contact info. So if anyone wants to get hold of me or get hold of one of the plays that hasn't been published yet, you can always do that, and I'm happy to send them out. It's all on arthurjolly.com.
And how often do you get to see some of your work be produced?
My work gets done all over the world. They've been done in Scotland and England and Bangalore and Nova Scotia, so I can't get to see all of them. I'm limited just in the sheer number of things that I can actually get out to see. But everything that I can, I do. You know, I will go down to Florida or over to New York for a play production quite happily. I love seeing what people do with my work. I wouldn't be a writer if I didn't.
And after seeing them produced, do you go back and rework them?
I'm one of those people that constantly wants change every little thing. I find it very difficult to say, yes, this will never be changed. I'm one of those people that never thinks it's finished. I always think you can tweak it a little more. Once it's published, then you can step back and say, well, it's too late to change it. But I have a feeling that if a movie of mine got made, I would be running up and down the line of people waiting to get in saying, oh, by the way, in the second act there's a line here. I thought of a better one.
So in order to stop yourself from doing this, what I suggest is you sell all your rights to Disney and get them out of your hands then, so you can never touch them again.
Yes, I'm one of those writers that always want to go back and tweak things. If I was making movies, I'd be like George Lucas, going back and trying to digitize everything and change it. But one of the good things about a play is once it's performed, it's there for that one moment, and things happen, and actors will drop a line and things will change, and that's part of the excitement of live theatre. And that's one of the reasons that it is such an exciting art form to go and see, is that it will be different. And it will be different from the way I wrote it or the way I had in my head. Every single evening, that's part of the wonder of it.
Yes, that is theater. You have been listening to Art Watch, and we have been talking by phone with Arthur M. Jolly, author of A Gulag Mouse. Thank you, Arthur, for joining us today.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you so much.
A Gulag Mouse, presented by Tosspot Productions, will be playing March 22nd through April 7th at Out North Contemporary Art House. You can find out more about this and other Out North events at outnorth.org. For ticket information, call 279-8099 or by visiting A Gulag Mouse Facebook event page. This has been Art Watch, a production of Out North Art House Radio, KONR 106.1 LP.